So what are the differences between this and this? Let's talk about it. What's going on, guys? So today have a pretty cool video for ya. I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to stand these two items side by side of each other, stack them up, and really understand exactly what are the major differences between the actual OpsCore amps and the FMA amps. Since I have this opportunity, want to sit down and kind of show you guys what are the differences between these two systems and these two communication headsets. So full disclosure, real quick here, as we're taking a look at these things, these are what I personally own and purchased were these OpsCore amps in flat dark earth. So just quickly open up the box here. I've used these for a fair bit now, have taken them to the range a couple of times, have mounted them to my helmet. They are my primary communications headset while we're playing Airsoft, and so these are basically my daily drivers. Previously, I had mostly used these Howard lights. These are a new one. The other set I had was about 10 years old. Eventually came apart and gave out, so replaced them with these ones. You do have to, just a quick heads up, if you are thinking about running Howard lights, you do have to modify the headband, modify it a fair bit to get it to mount up to a helmet, but you can do it, and it is a great option in case you're looking for some cheap ear pro to mount up to your helmet over there. But anyway, more to come on that piece. Really got a cool video to put together for you, but again, full disclosure, I've had a lot of seat time with the actual OpsCore amps. Haven't had as much seat time with the FMA amps. However, I've had to listen to a couple of different sets at this point, and so I think I have a good understanding of, from an audio quality perspective, what to be looking out for. So let's get into it. So with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and just set aside the OpsCore amps and open up this brand new box of FMA amps and just get an idea for what all isn't inside. And hey, for a couple $100 on eBay or JK Army or wherever you find these things, you get the full package. So we've got the FMA amps in here. We've got the arms for the arc rail adapters. We've got a down lead, and just keep a note, it uses a mini XLR 6-pin connector to do that. And then we have the microphone as well. So similar build to an actual amp. We'll compare microphones in a second here. So put that back for now, or put that off to the side for now, and take out the amps themselves. All right, so there we go. So as you can kind of see already, and I'll set this box off to the side and we'll talk about the accessories in a little bit. This is the foliage green version, but as you can see, there's a couple of differences right off the bat that we can kind of point out. I do have an FDE version of the FMA amps here mounted up to this helmet, so we can kind of see if you're comparing apples to apples in terms of the plastic. What's the color difference? It's got more of a pinkish hue on this one. This one's got a greener hue to it. And if you're curious on what the actual OpsCore amp arms look like, again, like I said, got a cool video here, guys. We've got a OpsCore ballistics helmet with some Comtac 3s here, and that's what the arms look like. And so we can compare the FMA arms in FDE against the actual OpsCore arms. So that's just a quick overview of some of the differences from plastics and color perspective. So taking a look at the amps themselves, this is a NFMI and connectorized version of the OpsCore amps they do weigh a little bit heavier than these FMA versions. And just kind of taking a look at the FMAs, we can see we've got the caps here. These are made out of aluminum. On the actual amps themselves, this piece is plastic. So inside there, we can see the battery compartment is made out of brass. Inside of the battery compartment here, we also have a brass internal piece. And again, we can see that the cap itself is made out of aluminum. So that pretty much covers some of the internals of the amps versus the FMAs. We can see here similar configuration on the caps. What's interesting is that for the FMAs, they only come with the one cap here, and it isn't matched up with the plastic. As we can see there, my OpsCore amps did come with two caps. However, I ended up losing one of these caps during an Airsoft game. My guess is that it was hit by a BB and it either popped out, or while I was actually shouldering the weapon, potentially got knocked out. What ends up happening, if you can see down here, because I've used these a couple of times now, we can see there's some marks on the bottom. And this is all due to head shape and chin weld and how you set up your gun and everything. So it may vary. Don't take this for face value. Evaluate your setup. But for me, the stock does make contact with the bottom of the amps here, and that does cause some seal issues and potentially, can knock out those connectors here, but that's just head shape. So let's take a look at some of the differences. So one of the key differences is obviously the headband here. It's got this kind of neoprene padding piece here. The cable is removable, which is kind of nice, because that way you can take it off of this headband, mount it to a helmet, take it back off the helmet, mount it to the headband, however you want to set these up. It's actually really nice to be able to do that. And similar to the amps, it has that configuration, but it's just a slightly different material, a little bit more reflective, that sort of thing. Differences in the cable, the sheathing on the cable is a lot more rubbery and sticky on the FMA amps. This is a little bit more, it feels a lot more solid, doesn't squish quite as much. And it's especially prevalent when you mount it up to those arms, and it kind of cuts into the cable at some points. So definitely, believe that the cabling, for 5 times the cost, what do you expect, right? But it's definitely a stronger cable overall, and will survive articulating the arms on the amps. So taking a look here, the headband is a little loose as it kind of comes up and down out of its travel. The amps have a little bit more retention here, so it'll hold position. If you're moving it around, it won't tend to change position on you or loosen up, especially if you're in that middle range here, which is kind of interesting though, because at the top here, this is kind of rubberized, and you would think it would provide a little bit more grip and work similar to how the Comtacs work, but that's not really the case. At least in these instances, in the 3 instances of the FMA amps that I've seen, that hasn't been the case. And so we've got the OpsCore amps here. It's just straight plastic all the way through. So taking a look at the ear cups themselves, it does appear that the way it mounts up is similar, if not identical. Cannot confirm. I didn't actually pull these cups off, and I haven't pulled them off of the OpsCores, so I can't say for certain. The material seems to just be like your regular foam material. I did have a pair of Peltor, Z-Tac, whatever clones. Was not a fan of them at all. The cutoff was way too aggressive. I mean, if you you shuffled your feet, it would cut off the sound. It was very, very aggressive. You couldn't adjust it. The sound quality was really, really bad for the money. I mean, it's a $100 clone of a Comtac, and I would argue that the Howard Leights, which are, you know, depending on where you get them, even the Walker Razors, you could be looking at spending 40 to 50 bucks and get, you know, better quality, right? That being said though, sound deadening, cutoff, amplification, those sorts of things, pretty decent on the FMAs, but we'll talk a bit more about that in a little bit here when we get to the sound quality portion. But just taking a look on the externals, it does have kind of that rubberized piece here, similar to the NFMI button. Oh, wrong side. Flip that over. There we go. So that's that NFMI button, and that would enable or disable if you had NFMI earplugs to go in conjunction with these. Going back to this material though, does feel pretty good quality, especially when you're comparing it to maybe something a little bit more comparable in terms of price. These cheap ear pads, they go bad after a year. These feel pretty decent. Okay replica of what's actually on here, but I would say that the ear pads on the OpsCore amps, they are a bit shallow, so if you have big ears, keep that in mind. But this is more of a gel material, similar to, I've got a pair of MSA Sordins with some gel cups, similar to, there's a lot more material here though. And, but yeah, we've got these here as well for comparison's sake. So taking a look then, that's pretty much it on the externals. The controls are pretty much identical. In terms of the ports and connections, you can see that the actual, let me take this connector out of here. So you just pull this out and then boom, reveals your connector. They are different connectors, just to be clear. So you are looking at a LEMO connector, which is just a straight pull through. And then this one is an XLR, mini XLR, 6-pin. And basically the way that works is you got this little button on the side, you depress it, or you don't have to when you're inserting it. But in order to remove it, you depress the button and then pull that out. And sometimes it can get hung up. These little mini XLRs, there we go, and was able to pull that out. So in terms of battery operation, that sort of thing, again, I haven't had a lot of seat time with the FMA, so I can't say how long the battery would last. So far, a couple of range trips, a number of Airsoft days with the OpsCore and just walking around the house as well. Probably pushing maybe 50 hours on the OpsCores, and haven't had to change the battery yet. And you know, the auto shut off feature is pretty nice. I'm not sure, I'm not sure if the FMAs have an auto shut off. Again, haven't had enough seat time, so time will tell. Maybe I'll post an update here while I'm editing the video and telling you whether or not it auto shuts off. So let's go over here to the headset as it's mounted to this helmet, and I want to compare it against the arms from a real OpsCore. So this has, I mean, this one's a little bit different, so we'll put that to the side here. So in terms of the articulation, these are the real OpsCore arms. Clicky, pretty smooth, you know, feels very secure. And the adjustment on the arms in and out, you know, it's very snug. Very positive click, good to go. Taking a look at the FMA arms. So still pretty positive click, right, on articulating in and out. That's good. Adjustment on the arms is a little bit looser, a little bit sloppier, but I mean, hey, for, you know, again, a fifth of the price, you're talking, you know, pretty good articulation. Tensioning in the cup there feels pretty good. Articulation's good. This piece is a little bit loose for my liking. I'm sure you could tighten it up And then as you just saw there, right, the cable kind of pops out randomly sometimes and you got to jam it back in. And that can happen pretty often with articulation, and particularly, and this is kind of why I come back to that cabling piece here, especially if you flip this around here and try to mount it to the back of the helmet, it does put a fair kink into the wire, and you can see the cabling jamming up there, and just doesn't inspire confidence if you're constantly articulating this, sticking it back here. I've spent a lot of time with wires and cables and stuff like that, and I just know that's going to be a weak point in the long term. I mean, how long are we talking? Couldn't tell you. But you know, if you're looking to buy once, cry once kind of deal, these probably aren't it. So that's the major differences from an externals point of view. And again, we'll just pull up FDE versus FDE for comparison, and you can see, you know, it's got more of a matte finish, it's got more of a pinker hue, and it's a bit shinier as well. But interestingly enough, it's kind of opposite with the arms. The arms have more of a matte finish and a textured finish, but the actual amp arms themselves are smoother and just a tad bit shinier. So weird, you know, trades here and there. Does it really matter at the end of the day? Probably not. But hey, if you're a stickler for details and you want a faithful replica, you know, you like LARPing in your mother's basement and that sort of thing, hey, you know, these are close-ish, right? So just know there are some differences there. So let's have a quick chat about accessories for, you know, the real amp and the FMA. This is a real ops core microphone. This is the FMA amp microphone. It's a little bit different on the windsock there, a little bit thicker cabling, a little bit different design on the plug end, but otherwise, you know, seems robust enough. Haven't had too many problems with comms. If anything, the ops core amp microphone has a reputation for being pretty fragile, so I would say, hey, I mean, treat both with respect. Now, I will say this, from a accessories point of view, let me just get the FMAs out here. Here are kind of the differences in the connector here. So again, it's either a LEMO type or Amphenol connector. Again, not intercompatible. However, they both use the same U174 plug adapter here. Talking about additional accessories, how do you get both of these systems to run? What all does that entail? And I've got my plate carrier set up here, and I've got this PTT that is hooked up to a Baofeng, which is used as a Kenwood 2-pin. And you have to use an amplified PTT because of the impedance, and there's a bunch of technical terms that we can get into, but the fact of the matter is your normal PTT off the shelf, off Amazon for 20 bucks, that's not gonna cut it. It's not going to transmit. You're gonna have low power. People aren't gonna be able to hear you. You need to buy, this is a Disco 32 PTT, and that's an added expense of like $120, right? For the FMA amps, there's also a little weird thing where, again, you can't just use any off-the-shelf PTT. What we ended up figuring out is that an ear more PTT does work with the FMA amps, and I got it right here. That is only and only if you plan on running the FMA amps off a Baofeng. I don't know, you know, any other radio systems. If it's using a Kenwood 2-pin, this ear more PTT off Amazon is what you're going to need to be able to communicate. I'm not aware of any other setups. I don't know how it's gonna play with other hardware. So just keep that in mind. Be prepared to spend a little bit more money just trying to figure out how to get the FMA amps to run, unless you have that information available to you. So with that being said, let's talk about audio quality between the two systems. And to help me do this comparison as well, I just want to take out some additional headsets. And again, I'm not an expert on comms. I'm not an expert on headsets. I just happen to, and let's see if we can get this to kind of sit here. Probably not. All right, well, you guys will I'll hold this into frame. But I've had to listen to a couple of these headsets and want to try to provide comparisons to the best of my ability, right? So again, most of my seat time has been spent with these two. However, have been able to spend a couple hours listening to these, the FMAs, the Sordins, and the Comtac IIIs out of frame in this one. Look, there's gonna be some bias here, guys. Obviously, I'm partial to the OpsCore amps. I think they're great. The audio quality is really, really friggin' good. It doesn't seem to pick up that much interference, especially when you're around cellular devices, radios, you're just walking around your home. There's all these different signals going through the headsets. Have had very little interference with these guys. I can't speak to the same accord with these three sets right here. So these are all fairly sensitive to radio interference. They do seem to pick up some weird signals. You'll hear some clicking, some ticking, some static. All of these systems seem to pick up on it equally, so I'm not knocking any particular system. If you run that, you know, that's fine. But if you're concerned about that and you hear weird sounds, it is something that I did notice was a step above when I started using the OpsCore amps. Comparing audio quality, like in terms of Airsoft headsets, amplified Airsoft headsets in particular, so the only seat time that I've had was with some Z-Tac, Comtac clones, and did not like them, got rid of them immediately. I know Earmore makes one too. I haven't had a chance to listen to that, so I can't make a direct comparison. But in terms of audio quality for this, I would actually say it's comparable to your Howard Leight Impacts. Haven't spent too much time with Walker Razors, so I can't say, but I've had a lot of time with these Howard Leights. Have had some amount of time with the FMAs, and frankly, it's not that bad. If you're okay with these, and I ran these for years and years and years, you know, these are great. They're directional, you know, pretty decent NRR, that sort of thing. You know, great headset for the range, not bad, right? Comparable. How does this compare? You know, how do these compare to some Comtac IIIs? I think the Comtac IIIs sound actually really, really good, and the noise canceling is really nice on this. One thing I did notice between the OpsCore and the Comtac IIIs was that it seems like loud noises get canceled out a little bit better with the threes. And what I mean by that is that you can still hear smaller noises while loud noises are going on. Whereas with the OpsCore, it seems to kind of cancel everything out. So, you know, that could just be my ears. Again, take this with a grain of salt. This is one dude's opinion, having spent a couple of hours on each headset. But that's something that I noticed right away. And again, could be confirmation bias. So my favorite headset, actually, I gotta say, from an audio quality standpoint, is actually the MSA Sordins. But just the fact that they're so sensitive, and the owner of these aren't mine. The owner of these, you know, really pointed that out to me too, is that they're pretty sensitive to radio interference. So that's the only thing. But from an audio quality perspective, really, really love the sound that's coming out of these, the Supreme-Pro-X's by MSA. So all in all, right, what do I think about the sound quality coming from these FMAs? Honestly, you know, it's not It's not the best. I do still think that, you know, just barely, right, the Howard Leights do edge this out. But in terms of a comms capable Airsoft, you know, headset that I could use and run on a day-to-day basis without wanting to rip my ears off like I did with the Z-Tax, this is actually really good. Really great option, really great value for Airsoft specifically. And this brings me to my kind of last point here is, you know, who are these headsets for, right? If you're looking at these options or you're looking at any of these other options, you know, what should you be thinking about? I would say if you need a set of headsets, comms capable for Airsoft use only, I would honestly recommend this as a great option. You don't have to do any weird dongle crap to get the same audio quality, but have comms on this thing. And like, this is a headache to figure out and set up for a helmet setup. But this is, you know, really good, decent quality for what it is. And you're able to communicate effectively to your team. And honestly, communication between teammates, communication in general, in Airsoft specifically, and even in the real world at sometimes, just depends on who you're running with, is really, really key. Really love this as, you know, great entry tool that I feel comfortable recommending to folks. You know, any other thing I'd say, yeah, you could get this, but in this case, you know, I really do like the FMAs. Obviously, I'm more partial to my actual op scores. I've spent over, I mean, at least $1,500, if not more, trying to get this to set up. And it's not even, I don't even have the NFMI earplugs for this thing. So just to give you an example of costs, this you can pick up with an Earmore PTT. You can pick probably this whole package up for, let's just say $350 shipped from Asia. For this, I mean, yeah, the sky's the limit. This thing can cost you a pretty friggin' penny. Not to mention, you still have to buy a bunch of accessories for it, that sort of thing. For my particular use case, what I ended up doing, because I run, obviously, my Airsoft helmet. Well, this is an actual OpsCore bump helmet, but I use this for Airsoft primarily. You know, I have some Peltor adapters. I literally bought an OpsCore headband, ripped off these pieces, stuck them on this Peltor piece right here. I also bent the rail inside of the amp adapter, more or less. Here, I bent the rail in there to give it some more retention. Otherwise, it was just falling right off. And that was, you know, another $100 for a new headband. So just keep that in mind. These things can get very expensive. The price that you see is not what you get. You need to buy more crap to get this thing to work. For this, it's pretty plug and play. I mean, you get almost all the accessories that you need in the box. You just need a PTT and a radio really to go with it, and some batteries. But that's pretty much it, honestly. Would I recommend the FMAs though for actual range use on the range? Look, I know some people that are looking at them, and you know, the NRR, advertised NRR, nobody knows what their testing methods are, so I won't even get into that. But the advertised NRR is right around 24 to 26 decibels, which is comparable to pretty much all the headsets that we talked about. Would I trust my hearing to this? No, I don't think it's worth it. I wouldn't risk it when you can easily pick up a pair of Howard Leights or just wear some freaking earplugs, you know, and know that your ears are going to be safe. You won't get tinnitus from that. For this, for like thunder bees and, you know, pyro and grenades, yeah, it'll save your ears, good enough, right? But for like sustained gun use, You know, the recoil, it's going off right by your ear. Like, I would not trust these to protect my hearing if I was to actually use this on the range regularly. But that's your call, right? The risk tolerance that you may take, that's not really up to me. That's your choice. What you decide to do with your body is completely up to you. So that's pretty much it, guys. You know, if you're curious, you have more questions, happy to go through my setup in a separate video, but really wanted to put together a kind of a comprehensive, I mean, as close as I can get without, you know, talking your ear off. And I know this video is a bit long already, but just wanted to give you guys a comprehensive overview. If you're curious about the FMAs, you're curious about the amps, you're curious about any of these other headsets, you know, feel free to leave a comment below. There's a lot of great knowledge out there that we can share with each other. And so just want to leave an open forum there to go ahead, take a look at it, and, you know, buy what's going to be best for you and not just take, you know, one man's opinion for it. If I had to say, I mean, obviously I've already made my choice. I've made my bet. I'm going to lie in it. OpsCore amps all day, every day. So until next time, guys, see you out there in the field, and hope you guys enjoy watching.